morning.
Hi, Shelley.
Hi, Susie.
How are you?
Knackered.
Oh. Are you back home or?
I'm back home, but I'm going back tomorrow. She's been really poorly with the antibiotics, and they've had to get the doctor again today. She rang me this morning to tell me she was dying, but actually, I think, and I thought, she sounded terrible and really upset me. And then I think the doctor's been and said, actually, it's because the antibiotics are so strong. And they're like, she's making her sick and have diarrhea, but she's got another day of them. And Lindsay's remedy for the double pneumonia hasn't arrived yet because she sent it first class post, but it's not arrived. So hopefully that'll arrive tomorrow, and as she finishes the antibiotics, she can go with that. But she's not good. I mean, she's had that much thrown at her, and then we just said, well, she's not going back to the hospital, so it's we're going to manage it from home. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm going back tomorrow. I was going to go back Friday, but I'll go tomorrow because if she's being sick, the carer's really lovely, and she's doing live-in this week until I get there. But she walks all over. Even when my mum's ill, she'll walk all over her because she won't eat. So
right.
So and my brother's been there, and he said if Shelley was here, you'd eat that. So, but she's really enjoyed the broth. That's been a real godsend, that potassium broth.
Well, thank goodness, yeah.
And I'd forgotten all about it because we did drink that a lot on our detox. And
it's very comforting.
Yeah, well, that's what we did. So anyway, but I'm glad. I was going to go tonight, but I just thought after this, I'm going to be too tired. I'm not driving tonight. It's too much. So I'll go tomorrow.
Right. Yes.
Oh, interesting. She had her heart rate's been like 120, and Lindsay gave me cactus for strengthen the heart. Yes. And I said to Sophie, the carer, I said, take a pulse after she's had the cactus, and it came down to 88. Interesting, isn't it?
It's amazing.
Yeah, really interesting. If you'd have seen her on Sunday after all, she was great on Sunday because the antibiotics hadn't really kicked in. And had her, her doses. She was a different woman. So I'm just saying, hopefully next week we could get back on all the homeopathy and get the benefit back again.
Oh, that would be lovely. Yes. Yeah. It is very powerful, even though it's so gentle, isn't it?
Yeah. I never knew Hypericum could be such an important plant.
No. No, I remember actually Lindsay gave me cactus for the dog because he had a racing heart near the end of his life. Yeah. So he had that as a 12C constitutional with something else beginning with C. Can't think what it was now.
Given my mum something called, I think, glonin or something as well for the heart. Hypericum, Suya. She's had 5 remedies. She's not on all of them now, but that'd be good for my dog because he's got the same thing. He's got the heart problem, so I might have. But she's a character, isn't she? I like her.
Yes, she's brilliant. Yes, no BS.
No, she apparently surgery had run her to ask her if she's going to have the vaccine. Did you hear what she said? Right.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, so she's very sympathetic. Okay, she is. I saw Teresa on Saturday as well. Where are you?
Oh, you just take off the background for me.
The weather looks good there.
Hello. No. Can you take that off for me? Yeah. Oh, I'm on the.
It's like the Wizard of Oz.
Community at heart. You look like you're outside. You're on mute.
Yes, you have gone muted.
Have I as well?
No.
Jane, you're on mute.
I'm coming back. Yeah. Here I am.
Fantastic.
Good.
Oh, Trixie's at my feet. She won't leave me. Oh, that's made me all hot and bothered. That. Sorry, I'm late, girls. Sorry. I'm normally on John's iPad, and I'm on his something else tonight. Oh, right. Hello. How are you both?
Fine, thank you.
Yes, good. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. I've had a lovely walk around the city today, Norwich City. It's like with a friend and her dog. Really, we were just counting the empty shops. It's so sad. There's so much of the city centre just empty.
Yeah.
And it must be the same the country over, you know, but
Chester's awful. Chester was already like that before this.
yeah.
They just used to close shops down.
Just very, very, very sad. So anyway, but other than that, no, I'm absolutely fine, thank you.
That's good.
Yeah.
How have you both got on this week? Well, I know it must have been rather challenging, Shelley, to do very much, but
I haven't. I've just been trying to. I'm really into my lemon oil. I love it. I'm addicted to it.
Yeah.
And I'm trying. Oh, the vitamin C arrived, and so I have realised you need more water when you're stressed.
Yes.
You really feel dehydrated a lot of the time, and it's just getting sleep. I'm so tired. I just feel so tired. So I'm just doing my. I haven't done any juicing this week. I just haven't had time, but I will. I've ordered Goddesses Never Age. I thought I'll do that.
Yes, that we talked about that last week, didn't we?
Yeah. So but I feel okay.
That's right in a way, because to push with the juice when you're very dry is probably not a good idea.
Yeah, and I do feel dry. And I'm not eating as well as, because I'd just rather be in my house, and my fridge is always full of vegetables and things, and it's not because I'm not here. And I'm like 6s and 7s. That's all I can say. But anyway, I'm fine. I'll be all right. Yeah, getting my head around it.
Yeah. But I'm okay. I'm trying to get my water up. I was telling my friend this afternoon, who's a bit older than me, how good it was for her. But people just balk at it, don't they, at the beginning?
Yes,
they just,
that's right.
Just say, oh, I couldn't. Oh, and I think, yeah, I think I can remember feeling like that. But now, and I was telling, yesterday I managed to pick up. Well, I could have got any number of heads of broccoli. They were selling them off for 6p. So
wow.
I'm going to do that roasted brassicas with it. I should have bought a cauliflower as well, and make some soup with it as well. So and I've been trying not to eat after 7, Susie. Tonight I haven't had my supper, so this will have to be an exception, but I'm trying to stick to that. I'm not always doing so well on the breakfast front, but I am going to try. Yeah.
That's great. Oh, we're actually going to have a look at the midnight law today.
Oh, good.
So, yeah.
Excellent.
And I hope it'll make more sense of it as well, seeing it, the whole big picture, rather than just a little in isolation.
Yeah.
No, that's brilliant. Something that popped into my head then. No, it's funny, if I had £1 over the years for every time somebody had said to me, well, I don't really like water.
Yeah. Well, I drink a lot of juice. Yeah, no, not the same. And you can't get people to understand that when you say water, you mean
water.
Just water.
Yeah.
And when I'm a complete convert, Susie, complete, and and this person I was walking with this afternoon, I don't see her very often. I suppose she must be in her early 70s, but she was saying, well, I've gone vegetarian since my daughter stayed with me at Christmas Day, and I said, all right, Mary, and she's got high cholesterol, high bad cholesterol and very good cholesterol, so she said. But so obviously, what has she been told to do? Cut out dairy. And I was trying to explain to her why that isn't, but I couldn't. I said, I'll send you some notes, Mary. I'll get, because, and I said, if you drank some water, that would help with that. I am right in saying that, aren't I, Susie?
Yes, that's right. Yes. It's one of those things where it's not always about what you take out. Sometimes it's about what you put in or what you're not putting in. And whilst dairy, it's the impact of food on your cholesterol level is really much less important than the fluid that you put in, because they know from various studies that it's your body that makes your cholesterol and unpicks your cholesterol, and it will handle dietary cholesterol and excrete it if it doesn't need it. It's much more likely to store it as fat, to be fair. But from the point of view of changing the levels of good and bad, it's about what's happening at a cellular level. Why are the cells needing that extra cholesterol?
And that's what people don't understand about water. They just think it's they don't, and I didn't either, that it's not just about taking the dryness away and everything. That is not, it's not just a dry mouth, it's all your cells, it's every part of your body that needs that water.
Yes.
Not just, so anyway, but there we go. So
I must say, Jane, you look so much better, doesn't she?
Do I?
Oh, yeah, you do. You do look so much better.
Yeah. I mean, I must admit, I can take that lemon fish oil off a spoon now.
Right.
I look forward to it, but I sort of say, I'll just get it over with, and it doesn't make me feel like, whereas John, when he crunches his fish oil capsules.
Oh.
Yes.
So, I do feel,
Each to his own.
Precisely, yes, precisely, Susie,
Yes, my granddaughter does the same.
Does she?
Yeah.
Okay. With the fish oils, gosh.
Yes, she's been doing that, probably since she was about a year old.
Yeah.
Chew it up, take the capsule out and give that to mummy. It's nice, squished, chewed up.
Well, it's better than Haribo, that's for sure.
Yes. That's very true.
Yeah.
Any questions or thoughts before we start?
No, I don't think so.
No.
No.
Okay. Just grab this.
Nope.
Oh, it's 5 elements, right?
Yes, because it's such a lovely philosophy to look at for a different way of looking at food and why we eat what we eat from a Chinese 5 elements perspective. Because they look at food from the point of whether it provides you with sourness or saltiness or bitterness or sweetness or pungency.
You do.
And they believe that you need each of those 5 flavours, but in a balance. And so the wonderful thing about the Chinese 5 elements is that it encompasses not only every aspect of our health, but also the environment that we live in and the seasons that we live through. It really is quite remarkable. it really puts us in the perspective of being a wee microcosm in the whole of the macrocosm. Just like your cell is the microcosm in terms of the body's macrocosm. And so it's a really ancient and beautiful philosophy that can help you understand the body in a very, very different way, and your health in a very different way, and you know, understand other people's health as well.
I did a feng shui course many years ago, and I actually got, you know, it was quite a detailed one, and that's when I first became aware of the 5 elements, and I did it in relation to like interior design and what you should put in your house and where, you know, balancing the energies. It's really interesting.
Absolutely. Even to that degree, it relates to your home. It's absolutely lovely, isn't it? And so I always start with the wood element because it relates to the spring. And then we flow from spring into summer, which is the fire element. And those 2 seasons, the wood element, the Chinese, actually feng shui philosophy takes it from the 15th of February until the 15th of May. So it's very similar to our traditional pagan spring, which is the 1st of February to the 1st of May. And then flowing through into summer, which in the Chinese calendar is 15th of May until the 31st of August, sorry, 31st of July. And we get the heat of summer. And then the earth element, which rules what they call late summer, which is a season we don't actually have, is only a week. And it's the 31st of July to the 7th of August. But the earth element is also believed to sort of come in at the beginning of each of the seasons for a week alongside the one that's exiting. So at the changeover of each season, there's a replay of the earth element. But the earth element is like a pivotal point between the other 4 that go round it, if you like. And then we flow into the metal element, which is the Chinese autumn. And that one is from the 7th of August to the 7th of November. And I'll say something about the colours in a moment, which was really fascinating. Now, the water element is our winter, and that one is from 7th of November until the 15th of February. And so if we nip back a moment and look at our pagan calendar, our summer is from 1st of May until the 1st of August. And our autumn is from 1st of August to the 1st of November. And our winter is from 1st of November until the 1st of February. So, of course, in the pagan calendar and Chinese calendar, we're already well on the way into spring. It's all started, it's on its way. And we know, from when the snowdrops come up, that is the beginning of spring. It's not the spring equinox. The equinoxes and the solstices are the midpoints of the seasons, halfway through. And so there's this, in the 5 elements, there's this belief that there is a never-ending cycle of change, flow between all of them, and this beautiful flow and connection between all of the organs in the body. And so I already mentioned that the body's like a small working model of the universe. And of course, with all the meridians flowing through each of the main organs and the lesser organs, if you like, the greater organs and the lesser organs. And I'll have a look at those as we go through and how they're impacted. So if you see a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, during their diagnosis, they'll be looking very closely at you, asking quite a lot of detailed questions. They'll listen to your pulses, and as they do so, they'll feel whether your skin is clammy or sweaty, if you're cold or warm, because their belief is that all of our body parts are connected. So they wouldn't send you to see a gynecologist or a heart specialist, because that would be looking at the body in isolation as though it were a car and it had an engine management system or a fuel management system that are separate from the rest of it, which they aren't. They're all interconnected. And to be honest, probably cars used to be when when it wasn't all run by computers and totally mind-boggling. But even your tongue, various areas of your body, the male and female body, also have other points on them. So each of our teeth relates to a meridian. Parts of our tongue relate to various parts of the meridian. A male penis, a female vagina, each has reflexes on. There are your lesser meridians run into your fingers and thumb, and your greater meridians run into your toes and end and begin there. So in the thumb, for example, we've got the lung, we've got the large intestine in the forefinger, we've got the what the Chinese call the triple heater in the middle finger, we've got the pericardium, which is the lining of the heart, and which we don't count as a separate organ, but the Chinese do. Very important because it protects the heart in the fourth finger. And we've got both the heart and small intestine meridians running into the little finger.
Susie, can you just repeat that about the hand and the fingers? It's which meridian? Sorry.
The fingers and thumb are the so-called lesser
meridian. Yes.
And the in your toes you have what they call the major meridians. Sorry, they're minor meridians and major, aren't they?
Major meridians.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And so in your big toe, you've got your spleen on the medial side, the inside of your toe, and you've got the liver on the lateral side, the outside of the great toe.
Oh, right.
Stomach meridian is the second toe. The gallbladder is the fourth toe, and the kidney and the urinary bladder are both in the small toe.
Right. If you ever have a Chinese foot massage, like in Hong Kong, they crucify you because
wow, yes.
everything hurts. And I think they do it on purpose to Western people because they just wait for you to like scream. But it's oh, you got bad liver, you got bad this, you got that. It's just you feel like feeling you're dead. But it's very good. It's very nice, but it's a very different reflexology than here.
Very different. I had a reflexology client years ago. She allowed me to write this up for a newsletter. She visited Thailand with her husband, and she said they saw a sign up for foot massage, and they went in, and the lady sat them down in a chair with their feet, prone to be worked on. And she led two blind people out, and she said, just let them know about the pressure. And so she said it was nothing like the reflexology that I gave. It was excruciating.
Yeah.
And she said they hobbled out, and they kept saying, no, stop. And these people just carried on. But she said they hobbled out, and then they were in bed for 3 days of the holiday feeling poorly.
Yes, yeah. Some people do. They have really bad stomachs after it.
Yeah. So she said, never again.
Wow.
So the Chinese believe that your acupuncturist, your tweener massage therapist should keep you well. That it's about disease prevention, and so they would give you guidance on what to eat, when to eat it, what herbs and spices to use, about breathing properly, about Tai Chi, possibly about Qigong, this kind of thing, other forms of keeping yourself well, because there's a strong belief that if you become poorly, your practitioner is not maybe doing their job.
I think traditionally they used to pay the practitioner when they were well.
Yes, that's right.
And
yes,
they don't pay them when they're ill. Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
Don't think it works like that now, because they've all lost their heads, but I think traditionally that's what happened.
Yes. Things have changed a lot, unfortunately. But and so what is lovely to do then is work with with nature and the seasons and the natural cycles to enhance the health of particular organs in that season. And so it's a funny thing that on Sunday, Andy and I were walking down the hill, out in the fields for a walk. And I said to him, no, I didn't say anything. I just thought, oh, there's something shifted today. It feels like there's more light, even though it was a cloudy day, or the energy's different. And a moment or two later, because we've been walking along quietly, he said to me, feels different today. He said, it feels different. He said, I don't know if it's the energy or the light, or I was like, wow. And it's a funny thing that you can feel when a season changes. And even over the years, I've come to notice that earth point, you suddenly feel there's been a shift.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's quite a subtle thing. And so what the Chinese believe is that each pair of organs is exalted, if you like, during each of the seasons. And so, for example, the liver and gallbladder are at their peak in spring. And so this is why we tend to run the detox retreats in the spring, because you're really supporting the liver and having a good cleanse during the springtime. So for the Chinese, the language of health is also similar to the language of weather and the language of the landscape. And there's very much a belief that there can be too much of something or too little of something. And so you can eat too much of a particular type of food, which will create an excess, which will have an impact in the body. I mean, for example, is sugar. If we eat too much sugar, we create more what the Chinese call dampness in the body. And I'm going to have a look at that in a bit more detail, because it particularly relates to the spleen. Then there can be too little of something, like say too little water. And so when there's too little water and hydration, we'll not be supporting the kidneys, and that will have a knock-on effect for the heart because of our blood pressure. And
they really do this, because I've got a very close friend who's Hong Kong Chinese, but often, when she's staying at my house and I'll say, would you like an orange? No, because it's too damp. Or that's the way they talk. They actually, and they can feel the difference. They can feel it's damp. They can feel, and I find it fascinating, because we're just oblivious, aren't we? We just don't. We don't eat like that at all. But the whole time I'm interested in the way what she says. Oh no, I won't eat that because like maybe asparagus is something. It's very, very specific. And
That's it.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
really interesting.
And it's a great example for eating seasonally, like we were speaking about a few sessions ago. You know, because in the supermarkets now we can get anything anytime.
Yeah.
But that, you know, doesn't necessarily mean it's a good thing.
And it doesn't taste right, does it? It doesn't always. It doesn't taste right.
That's it. Just to mention that wind is not wind. It's actually things that come in very suddenly. And so if you suddenly find yourself starting with a cold or a flu, it's generally the wind's got up you. And it's liver trying to clear waste in a particular way. And unfortunately, it can be quite serious come wind, because it can be something, you know, even like a stroke, something as sudden as that, that's more serious and much more difficult to handle. And so things like cold, you know, feeling cold, and somebody has, you know, they are cold all the time, or they're overheated and too dry all the time, and their organs are dry. So in some ways, constipation can be a form of dryness, if you like. Then, of course, you've got things like hot sweats and so on, which were fairly self-explanatory. But dampness, we'll have a look at and come back to. And so there is a lovely, what they call a Shen cycle, which is how the organs and the elements feed each other. So if you can imagine, your wood element has the ingredients there to feed a fire. And if once we've burned the fire, we end up with earth, the ashes. And the earth holds minerals, or the metals, that will nourish water, that will feed wood and rehydrate it, and help it grow. So there's a positive cycle there that's very kind of lyrical, and I hope does that kind of make sense?
I understand. I've done it before, so I understand it. I don't know have you ever done this before, Jane?
No, never. No.
And so should I put that in the context of the organs? So if you can imagine your liver and gallbladder, which are the wood element organs, are the mother, so to speak, of your heart and small intestine. Your heart and small intestine are the mother of the earth element organs, which is the spleen, the stomach, and the pancreas. But having said that, I'm just going to confuse the issue by saying that the spleen is the mother of all your other organs. So she's a really important organ, and that's why I'm going to have a look at her in a bit more detail in terms of the dampness. So your spleen, your stomach, and your pancreas feed your metal element organs, which is your lungs and your large intestine. And your lungs and your large intestine feed the kidneys and the bladder, which feed the liver and gallbladder. Now then, there's a co-cycle, which means that if one or other set of organs is overwhelmed, she will feel unable to feed her son, so-called. I don't know why it's daughters, son, not daughters, but there we are. And she will tend to dump waste or dump the problem into the next set of organs in the cycle. And that is where we get our co-cycle, or our so-called destructive cycle from.
Oh, right.
And so where wood element, which is your liver and gallbladder, would normally feed the heart and small intestine, if she's struggling, if the liver's dry, if it can't clean your blood, then it will dump waste into spleen, stomach, and pancreas. and you might find that creates interferences, for example, with your blood sugar and the way that's managed, and your energy and your weight. The fire element, which is the heart and small intestine, will normally, if it's being fed by wood element, will feed the earth element organs. But if not, it will push waste into the metal element organs, which is your lungs and large intestine. So if fire is struggling, you might find that you're getting your breathing tightening up, or you might find that the intestines are struggling to clear the waste. If the earth element is then struggling, and you can see how this would have a knock-on effect right the way around, just from starting with one organ struggling, probably now. Because if wood is destroying earth, earth will be destroying water, water will be destroying fire, and fire will be destroying metal element organs. Does that, and metal will be destroying wood. Does that make sense? And
yeah,
if
it
I
does.
describe,
Yeah, it does. It's just, it's complicated to take in, isn't it?
it is. If I describe that more sort of philosophically, your wood, your trees grow and break up the earth. Your earth will soak up water, maybe too much water. Well, it would do if we farmed it properly anyway. Your water will put out a fire, but maybe you don't need the fire of your heart putting out. And so then you're dampening the cardiovascular function. Your fire will melt metal. But if you think about your lungs and your large intestine, you don't want them overheated, you don't want them dried. Your metal will chop wood. But you don't want, you know, your liver and gallbladder to be further, what's the word, destroyed. You don't want it to have further issues than it's already got. And then, did I miss one out? I think I've been right round, haven't I? Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yes.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I
mean, in the grand scheme of things, provided we're working to balance each of them, then there's going to be a nice balance in all of them. So we don't have to worry about it too much, but it's a bit of background.
And on meridians, aren't there different points for the different elements? Like you can have lung, you can have like heart, heat, can't you? You can have fire, can't you? You can have lung. There's different points for different, presumably because of the co-cycles out. Presumably with acupuncture, your co-cycles out, and your pulses tell them what's going on, and that then balances this, then rebalances this.
That's it. Yes. Yeah. And they, I mean, the Chinese also, I don't know if you've ever seen this lovely chart with the meridians in.
Yes, I think I've got it somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. It really is a super chart, and it gives a little bit of background on each of the elements and the organs, and your emergency well points, as they're called, are at the base of each nail. So a hand massage with, you know, a good massage over the fingers can be very, very positive thing to do, very simple thing to do.
Right.
So on to the food. I've just done a more detailed map there of the imbalance cycle and the generation cycle. And then on the left, you've got your flavors. And so each of your elements has their own flavor. So the wood element is sour. The fire element is bitter. the earth element is sweet, the metal element is pungent, and the water element is salty. And this is the thing too. Oh, and we've already said about eating with the seasons and, you know, obtaining as much as we can as possible. And so what we're going to have a look at then is how to bring in, I've got a recipe at the end that brings in all the elements in one meal, if you like, but with very natural foods. And so also...
Is that what you're supposed to do then? You're supposed to balance all those elements in each meal?
If you can, yes. See if it's a lovely thing to do, to see if you can bring a little bit of everything in to balance the meal.
Right.
There's a lovely book called, I think it's called Why the Chinese Don't Count Calories. And it's because of the way that they eat. It's by a Western lady who lived in China for 10 years. It's a beautiful book. And there's a few recipes in there, actually. Not many, but because mostly it's the story of what she learned while she was there about the way that they eat and why they eat that way. And so this is the other thing that I've been covering a little bit, which is the midday, midnight cycle. So the outer ring shows when the organs peak 2 hour time point is, that they are at their peak and maximum of function. They're working their very, very hardest for you. And then on the inner ring, it shows the element that they belong to, like we've been talking about a few minutes ago. But if you can imagine, in the 24-hour clock, where we can see, for example, in the top left-hand corner, that the spleen's peak time is 9 while 11 in the morning, its low time is 9 till 11 at night. And so this is why it's lovely to get to bed really before 11 if you can, and relax and rest that lovely mother organ of all the other organs in your body. But what you'll notice is that if you look at bedtime, you've got 11 till 1 is the gallbladder, and then liver next is 1 till 3, lungs are 3 till 5, large intestine is 5 while 7. And then stomach is 7 while 9 in the morning. So it's good to have your breakfast then. But it's great if you can to eat your dinner before 7, because stomach is then 7 while 9 p.m. on its low time. And so if you can give it a break and not make it have to digest food then. And oh boy, this is one thing where I wish I always practiced what I preach, but I don't always manage it. Because of working most evenings. So any questions about this one?
No, it's very interesting. It's really handy to have it all like that.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
Now the triple heater, because they're labelled slightly differently on here, and so the two that 7 till 9 is traditionally known as the pericardium rather than sex circulation, and in Chinese traditional medicine the triple burner is what they've got labelled there as thyroid and adrenal. Now the triple heater is actually what they also call 3 burning spaces, and if you like, it's the trunk of the body and the 3 functions that it performs. So it governs respiration, digestion and excretion. And again, it's not an organ as such, it's not acknowledged as an organ by us, but it is by the Chinese. So just a little look at liver imbalance, and this is the sour flavour. And so with liver imbalance, you can get quite a bit of stagnation or heat. And the kind of symptoms that you might notice are headache, feeling a bit dizzy, maybe high blood pressure, maybe people who go a bit red, eye problems, things like blepharitis or conjunctivitis.
Oh, right.
People also can experience insomnia, and because of the heat and dryness, some bloating and constipation. And of course, with the wood element, the emotions can relate very much around anger and irritation, snappiness, and with gallbladder, even bitterness. And so in people's charts, I'm thinking of birth charts now, in people's cases, you sometimes see a gallbladder operation in somebody's case after a very bitter divorce, for example, because of the bile, if you like, rising and getting stuck, because they may be stuck in it still. And so also because liver supports female cycles, she's your planner. She will plan when you have a cycle. She will also plan when you go into menopause. And you know, things like PMT. Now also, because liver breaks T4 down into T3, she can be associated with thyroid issues, and again, because of the emotional part of liver energy, can be related to depression. So then with the heart, that's the bitter flavour. It's our heart and small intestine. Very much excess heat can be cause a heart imbalance. And so the kind of thing we might see would be ulcers, again, a red face, very emotional, but also at some points perhaps quite closed off with the heart. If it's sort of been an emotional reaction, it can be both ways. It can be the neediness of the spleen imbalance, or it can be the coldness of the heart shutting down and closing off, and even heart attack when somebody's, you know, beloved has left them, that kind of thing, as you've probably heard of that happening. So things like heart palpitations, anxiety, but not quite the same as a fearful anxiety. Again, insomnia equally could be heart imbalance, and dreaminess. So the urine can be quite dark or yellow. Tip of the tongue can be red or burning. Quite a bitter taste in the mouth people can get. And sometimes, if the liver is overwhelmed, some of that heat can come through from the liver, because she can't, if the liver's overwhelmed, she's unable to look after the heart in the same way. So spleen imbalance, people can feel quite weak and disordered, because the spleen rules the cycles of the body, your sleep cycles, your menstrual cycle, your circadian rhythms. She's very much connected to all of those cycles in your body. And low energy is a classic sign of spleen feeling overwhelmed. Stomach or abdominal bloating, and bowel movements being irregular, weight gain, heavy and puffy arms and legs. Again, poor quality sleep because of the sleep ruling and insomnia, and more likely to be underactive thyroid with spleen, because she also relates to thyroid, but in a different way than the liver, more to do with metabolism.
So Susie, you know, like in some cases people have their spleen removed, you know, because it bursts or whatever. How do, obviously, so that then isn't there, and that's the mother. So how does that body then work? Or like when you have your gallbladder out, the cycle's broken, isn't it?
Absolutely, yes. The meridian flow is disrupted by the removal of the organ. Yeah, and there's, you know, there forever after will be a challenge in the flow.
Yeah.
So that's why you're best hanging on to everything if you can. When my mum was in her 40s, she actually got gallstones, small ones, and the doctor said to her, "Oh, well, we'll just get you into hospital and they'll whip it out for you." And she said, "No, I don't think so, thank you." And she found a naturopath and a acupuncturist and worked with him, and she did very well. Yeah, she was fine. He sorted her out. So, sorry.
No, it's that's interesting because I mean, gallbladders. People, I know loads of people that, you know, just carry on eating badly, and you know, and they've been in agony with. It's a really, really painful thing, isn't it? Your gallbladder.
Yeah,
and
very, very.
then
Yes.
They have it out, and then they keep eating crap.
Yes. That's right. Yes. And so underactive thyroid, chronic fatigue syndrome is a classic sign. You know, we said about energy, post-viral syndrome, ME, classic spleen imbalance there, and edema, so any swelling in ankles and this kind of thing. And so-called dampness can cause fungal overgrowth, and we will have a look at that in a few minutes. Any questions so far?
Lots. I was just thinking of John when you were just discussing that then, because he had ME 30 odd years ago, you know, Teresa's John, and you know, when it's just really interesting to see. And you know, for example, I got divorced. I was having a really problem with my marriage, and I got amoebic liver abscesses.
Did you?
Yes. And you know, and my liver swelled up hugely, and my spleen did, because it was trying to work with the infection. But I mean, obviously, I got that from dirty water from traveling, you know, in Far East. But but it was a time of great anger.
Yes. Yeah.
And, you know, so the balance wasn't there.
Yes. And it's a classic situation where we're probably not able to express all of the anger that there is towards the person that really needs expressing to, if you see what I mean. And yes, so very, very difficult. And it's like the lovely Abraham. I don't know if you've come across Esther Hicks, but he talks about that, you know, if we don't, it's when we hold things in our body, they start to not do our body any good. So we can be more prone to something than we normally would be. So you mightn't have, you know, in normal circumstances, you mightn't have been prone to get the condition. And so with the metal element, oh sorry, I didn't say the earth element is sweet flavour. And we know how easy it is to eat, you know, to go for a sweet flavour, because we talked about that in session 3, and how the body loves a sweet flavour. It feels quite comfortable with it because it's safe. It's not likely to be poisonous like a sour or bitter flavour. And so with the metal element, it's a pungent flavour. So things like your onion and garlic and the spices, those kind of things. But obviously in the autumn and winter, not too much of those spices because they'd be quite overheating, but a little bit can be useful. So Chinese medicine considers your lung to be your first defense, your first line of defense in the body, because it's the lung that will deal with any external pathogens. And so if they impair lung function, and you can get sort of the symptoms as described that you might expect for the respiratory system to try and clear itself. And so because the lungs relate to the emotion of grief after perhaps a sad event, they can be part of a depression. And with a depression, someone might have a chronic cough that simply they can't get rid of, that hangs around. There might be a mucusiness also that hangs around. And it's to do with the body trying to deal, if you like, not only with external pathogens, but also, like goodness knows how much pollution we have in the air now, but with the internal result of emotion. So our kidneys are relating to the water element and the salty flavour, and they're said to store our original chi that we inherit from our parents, or our I think that one is the Jing, the original essence, but it's associated with the body's constitution and whether it's strong or weak. And I know I once had a reading from a Chinese practitioner at a health fair, and he said, and I can't remember which, he said, well, either the left or the right side is your mother's side and the other is your father's, and your mother has a very strong constitution, but your father's is not as strong. And there does seem to be a lot of truth in that. I mean, Daddy's 88 and Mum is 80, but Dad's energy has always been much lower than Mum's. Mum is like a little, she's just always zipping around doing, and Dad is much more steady and sort of placid, and he always has been. He hasn't had the energy that Mum has. Not to say that he's anyway, enough about me, as you were.
Interesting though.
I was just trying to give an example.
Yeah.
And so with the kidneys, there can be a lack of energy. There particularly can be lower leg problems, lower back problems, knee, ankle or heel pain, tired legs, poor memory, frequent urination, but particularly at night time.
It's me.
Early greying of the hair.
It's definitely me. Menopause. Yeah.
Menopause.
Yeah.
Impotence and so also developmental problems for children, such as delayed walking or speech. Now, sometimes people can feel a salty taste in the mouth, and that's possibly a sign of a kidney deficiency or disorder. But on the other hand, if you are making quite big changes and you find that you've cut processed salt out of the diet, then that is also a common situation where people would find a salty taste coming into the mouth because it's part of their body clearing it from the body. So the spleen is like our internal mother, and she's also affected by the way that we were mothered, how we mother ourselves, how we mother others. And so eventually we all have to perhaps become a mother to our own mother. We often have to eventually come to the realization that we have to be our own mother to ourselves, and to try and remember to do that. And that's one thing that we're not always very good at, is being a mother to ourselves, and really looking after ourselves before we look after everybody else.
It's a hard thing to do though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if we do that, then we will have the strength to do what we need to do. But it's a little bit like that thing on the airplane where they say, please put your own mask on first for your oxygen if we crash, rather than your child's. Then put your child's on, or your, the other person that needs your help. Because if you can't breathe, you're not going to be able to sort the other person out. And it's a similar thing. So she is our central organ of digestion, in that she takes up the chi energy from the food and distributes it to the other organs in the body. And so she adapts that energy, she nourishes and supports the rest of the other organs. And a strong spleen is able to transform energy from food and transport that food around the body as chi. And at a mental level, she represents thinking. So when the spleen is healthy and balanced, our thinking processes will be balanced. Because if you like, thinking at a mental level and digesting information and thoughts is very much like digesting food. Does that make sense? So overthinking is one of the things that can result when our spleen is imbalanced, or it can imbalance our spleen. So working too late, thinking too much about things, trying to work them out when maybe we're not going to that easily find a solution just by thinking about it, if that makes any sense. Is one of the things that can really imbalance our poor old spleen. And I know that I overthink because I have a wrinkly forehead, which is why I have a fringe.
Me too.
And I read it once, I thought, oh, yeah, I'm an overthinker. I've got a wrinkly forehead. So there we go. People who don't overthink have these wonderfully, smooth foreheads. Because the spleen is our internal mother, sometimes when we need comfort and sort of emotional comfort, even that thing of giving yourself a hug, we might eat rather than comfort ourselves or seek that comfort that we need. So how do we nourish the spleen? Because anatomically, externally, if you like, the outside manifestation in the body of the spleen is your fascia and your tissues, which they now acknowledge is a separate organ. And if you like, I can send a little presentation I did a couple of months back maybe on the fascia and how it is a separate organ. And so when our fascia are toned and relaxed, we can be in our bodies comfortably. But if they're tensed up and we're all contorted, then the energy is not going to flow freely. So one of the things that the spleen loves us to do is to stretch and move. So just walking in nature is something that the spleen loves. And, even just in the morning, stretch a little bit before you get out of bed. Get out of bed, have another stretch, and let your body open out rather than cramp up. So the spleen loves physical therapies like massage, like reflexology, all of those that are going to nourish her tissues, the fascia and the tissues, and bring blood supply and take all the wastes away. Overwork and mental stress is what weakens the spleen. But we can connect with the earth element and with the spleen by being in our garden, by growing, by walking through all of the seasons. So what do we notice if the spleen is in imbalance? Well, one of the things we really notice is a dampness in the body. So dampness generally, tiredness and achiness in the limbs, the digestion is not particularly strong, and we can suffer occasionally from a muzzy head. So not a headache, but a thick sort of head that isn't able to concentrate, you know, not thinking clearly. Then there's kind of a second degree of dampness, which they call water, and it's sort of a water logging, which can cause us to swell and gain extra weight. And it's sort of like bloating and edema and that kind of thing. And then there's another lovely manifestation of dampness in the body, which is phlegm. And that's a more sticky manifestation of dampness, but can often lodge in certain organs. So, for example, you know, we can get phlegm sticking in the throat. We can get it clogging up the nose and the sinuses. It can clog up the lungs. And if it's getting more serious, we can see things like tumours and cysts. Parasites and fungal conditions are more common. It's lovely, this, isn't it? So things like athlete's foot, ringworm, candida and thrush are all signs of dampness. So how can we resolve that? Well, one of the ways is through food, and I'm going to do, I've got a handout on resolving dampness through food, and looking at the other organs and what foods help those as well. So to avoid dairy and soy products can be quite dampening, but particularly things like tofu and soy milk and so on, rather than a little of some of the fermented products. So pork and really rich meats, roasted peanuts are very dampening. So peanut butter, better to have other nut butters and tahini. Concentrated juices, but particularly things like orange, like you mentioned, shalikas, are very dampening. Wheat and bread, yeast and beer, for fairly obvious reasons, because of the yeastiness of them very often. Bananas are very dampening.
Didn't realise that, because you think they're really good for you, don't they?
So everybody would have us believe, but they are very mucus forming. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
So sugar and salt and sweeteners, concentrated sweeteners of any kind, are damp forming. And sugar, incredibly damp creating, and can contribute to the fungal conditions particularly. And saturated fats in excess, but obviously not, not necessary to avoid completely, but in excess. And this is the thing about the Chinese, they really focus on the in excess, too little, too much. And in fact, they also look at that from a symptom point of view. So for example, with the fire element, each of the organs or each of the elements has a sound that comes from the body, and your sound from the liver is shouting. Your sound from the heart and fire element is laughing. The sound of the earth element is singing. And I can remember as a child, I don't know if anybody else had this, but my mum used to sing everywhere in the house. Well, you could hear my mum singing. Used to sing to us a lot as well. All the old songs and little nursery rhymes. And I think there's a lovely chanting workshop I went on years ago that spoke about how when there are carving depictions in churches, everyone always has their mouth open because they're singing while they work, rather than relying on the radio to do it for them. And singing is an expression of the spleen and the pancreas and the stomach. So please feel free to sing in the shower because it's very, very health giving for your spleen. And then the noise of the metal element can be groaning. And the noise of the, now hang on a sec, have I got that right? Because I always get the water. Let me just check that actually, because sometimes I get the water and metal the wrong way round. Yes, the metal element, the sound is crying, and the water element, the sound is groaning.
Oh.
And that's, you know, can be with an imbalance, obviously, because if you're in balance, then the kidney will sound confident, because the chi is strong, and you know there isn't that imbalance there, that weakness. With the metal element, it's the opposite of the anguish and crying. It's the cheerfulness and connection, wanting to be connected to others, like a telegraph wire, really, which of course is metal.
Do you look at all that then, Susie, when you're doing a consultation?
Well, it's really interesting because you kind of notice things sometimes about people. For example, with the fire element, I don't know if you know anybody who does this, but there are some people who laugh after everything they say, everything that you say. Yeah. Have you ever met anyone who does that?
I call them happy depressives.
Right, right.
I know a woman, and she annoys me. She just giggles, she laughs after everything she says. It's, yeah, I do know somebody, and she's very poorly, actually.
Yeah, and it can be, the laughter sometimes can sound entirely inappropriate to what's being said or what's being listened to, and but there's that excess, if that makes sense. So yes, I notice things like that. For example, when people turn up dressed in all one colour, they're either black from head to foot or green from head to foot. Actually, sometimes I'm green from head to foot. I love green. But I tend to try and wear the colours of the season a little bit, and because I'm short, I can't get away with too many colours in one go, not solid colours. Then foods, and I'm going to send a much bigger list than this, but just a few examples of foods that help resolve dampness. Green veggies like lettuce and watercress, celery and garlic is lovely, turnip and kohlrabi, those kind of rooty foods. And root foods are lovely because they really have a natural sweetness that we don't want to get from sugar. So it's kind of thinking about the sweetness of the earth element as being your root veggies and a little bit of your grains. So a little bit of brown rice, a little bit of quinoa, a little bit of buckwheat, that kind of thing. Rye and amaranth are mentioned here. Alfalfa, pumpkin and squashes are very much the earth element, and the colour, you know, the bright oranges of the earth element. Apple cider vinegar and other well brewed vinegars, you know, that still have the mother in them. Ajuki beans are famously fabulous for helping the spleen and resolving dampness, those lovely little red beans. Things like chamomile, valerian, peppermint are lovely for the spleen.
Can I just ask you about apple cider vinegar? Because I've got a bottle in the fridge. It's with the mother and everything.
Yeah.
And I know it's good for you, but I struggle to use it. I don't know what to do with it, really. I know you're supposed to take it and drink it, but I find it really bitter.
Yes, yes. Do you know, one of the nicest ways is to, because have I sent the recipe for the lemon dressing?
I don't think so.
I think so.
Well, as we're going into spring, that might be nice. So you just squeeze a lemon, and you do twice the quantity of good cold pressed olive oil as you do lemon, and add a teaspoon of Dijon mustard and 1/4 teaspoon of honey. You can add another teaspoon of whole grain mustard as well if you want, if you like the mustard flavour, and then shake it all up and make yourself a salad dressing for either cold or hot veg. It would be lovely on, hot broccoli and leeks. It's lovely on. But what you can do is make a bigger amount of dressing, and you've got 1 lot of lemon juice. You can then add the same amount of cider apple vinegar, and then double up the amount of olive oil. So twice the amount of olive oil to your liquid, and then you've used it in the dressing that way, or just use the cider apple vinegar for the dressing, or a good balsamic with the mother, or a good white or red with the mother, and that way you can, vary the flavour that you use and the effects of the vinegars that you use on your veggies.
Can you put it directly onto something fungal? Like
cider apple vinegar?
Yeah. Can you actually put it on your skin?
Interesting. I haven't put it on the skin. Have you read something about that?
I just wondered if I know it's really good for like athlete's foot, and I have got a little tiny bit of athlete's foot, and I'm really amazed because I never get things like that, but it's obviously sugar and stress.
Yes. Yeah.
And I can't believe I've got it, so I know apple cider vinegar is good.
Yes.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well then, and it's all about your mum, isn't it?
Yeah.
Spleen. Yeah, absolutely. And so to think about getting the water back up, keeping the sweet foods that are coming in down, and it'll go. It'll go. Yeah. And really it's to think of it quite positively, because in a way your body's clearing that dampness through the skin. And some of us are quite good at clearing dampness through the skin. I have been in the past. When I probably said when I first met the tutor, Barbara Wren, who was the principal of the college I trained with, and in the 6 months after the beginning of the course, my body was starting to clear out all over the place, and I got this lovely ringworm on my arm, and I thought, oh no, and I went to see her and I said, could you tell me what you think about this and what I should do about it? And she said, ooh, you are a highly sodiumized being, aren't you? And what she basically meant was that, as we said, it's not only excess sugar, it's also excess salt that can create dampening. Yeah. And my body was clearing some of that excess sodium through the skin. And it waited till the spring to do it and have a lovely clear out. It really, she didn't need to say any more, because she told me what was going on. And what I actually started doing at that point was having millet for breakfast most mornings, because millet is very much a grain like quinoa of the earth element, and very high in magnesium, very high in potassium, and within probably about 2 months, it had just gradually cleared up of its own accord.
Wow.
So millet porridge is a good thing to do then for like fungally things.
Yes, although it's a funny thing. I used to have probably a good 2-ounce portion from dried, but I couldn't do that now. And I think it's partly because our external environment has changed so much in the last 20 years with regard to the electromagnetic frequencies and the effect they have on blood sugar. And so I maybe wouldn't recommend now having it every day, maybe every other day, and always restricting to 1 ounce from dried. Because we're just not living in the same world as we were 20 years ago, or 23 years ago, as it was. Yeah. So, sour flavours, like we were saying, relate to the liver and gallbladder. So they go to the liver first, and we've got our citrus, our kiwi, our blueberries. Unfortunately, fruit that obviously isn't around much at the moment, but things that are going to be coming in, like our, you know, a little bit of cider apple vinegar, for example, is also got quite a sour taste. And some of our vegetables some of our green vegetables can be a bit sour as well. So sour flavour stimulates absorption and contraction in the body, you know, a nice bit of the digestive system keeping everything moving. It's also really good at breaking up fats, counteracting the effects of fatty foods. So this is why it's great to have your lemon or your vinegar with your olive oil, for example, because it will encourage the digestion. Helps you with loss of body fluids, such as with sweating, diarrhea, hemorrhage, which obviously is slightly more serious, but eliminating stagnation from the liver, from the body, and it's quite cleansing and detoxifying. So this is why they talk about lemon, you know, having some lemon in your water, and it gives you a little detox in the morning. Bitter flavours go to the heart first, and it's a draining and drying flavour, which improves the appetite and stimulates digestion. So this is I know this is very general, but draws out the dampness and the heat from the body. So it sort of dries out some of the dampness. So some of the lovely things that are coming up, because really rocket and watercress, not only bitter, but also lovely for the wood element, the liver, because of the greenness of them. And pumpkin seeds are a little bit bitter. Chili, bit hot for now, but in the summer, a nice bitter flavour to bring more of. Now a little bit, but not a lot. So your sweet flavour goes to the spleen first, helps circulation and nourishing the body and nourishing all the other organs. There's a so-called full sweetness, which comes from meat, pulses, nuts, starchy vegetables, like we said, root veggies, grains. And there's a kind of empty sweet that the Chinese talk about, which is too much fruit and sweeteners of any kind, like sugar, like the artificial sweeteners, like too much honey, too much of anything like that. And this is the thing we have to be careful about. If there's an excess of it, the sweet flavour and excess processed salt will lead to the formation of phlegm and sometimes heat. So we can, you know, be quite dampily sweaty, clammily sweaty. But really we should avoid that sweetness with damp conditions. The metal element the pungent spicy flavour promotes circulation and blood flow, stimulates the digestion, and we can use it a little bit again to reduce dampness, but not too much spice. So things like your spring onions, your scallions or shallots, onions, ginger, black pepper is quite pungent. Things like broccoli, a little bit of pungency.
I can't believe broccoli's pungent.
Yeah.
You know, I can see the others. I just can't see how broccoli. Why would broccoli be pungent?
Some of it is very, very subtle, because it's some vegetables are applicable to more than one, and so broccoli is also lovely for the wood element as well.
Because it's like a tree, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
The tree.
The water element. Now, this salty flavour is not going to be just about sea salt or rock salt. It's going to be all of the salts that our body receives. So the magnesium, the potassium, the calcium, all of them are a salt, really. And so nettle leaf tea bags are lovely for a natural saltiness. Maybe a little licorice, but not a lot. But that's also a sweet flavour. Then black beans, walnuts, mackerel, and things like your seaweed is absolutely lovely. So salty flavour goes to the kidney first. It moistens and softens and detoxifies, stops your muscles hardening and your glands, stimulates digestive function, and helps improve concentration. So there's one thing about water, and I'd be really interested to know if you feel this, but whether the more hydrated you are, the easier it is to concentrate on something.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Oops. Sorry, nearly there. So I put this table in just in case it's of interest. And so what you've got there with each of the elements is the season, the climate, the emotion, the parts of the body that other than, say, the kidney and the bladder. The sense organ for the kidneys is the ears. And so if our hearing is starting to go as we get older, then there's a pound to a penny that we're not as well hydrated as we should be. If our eyes aren't seeing as well as they might, then it's thinking about liver and gallbladder function, and you know, are we giving the liver what it needs to cleanse itself? And actually, most of these could go back to water for a start off, but it's a good starting point. So then, little recipe which I'll send out properly: chopped onion, grated garlic, grated ginger, little bit of chili. You saute those till they're soft. Then shredded cabbage, spring greens, cavolo nero, anything like that. Maybe even if you want some leek, shredded, and so keep sauteing it through. Add some water, some apple cider vinegar, and some liquid aminos and tamari to keep sauteing through, so that you're more steam frying really than oil frying. And you can do the beginning as steam frying as well. And then just serve that on top of a little bit of buckwheat that you've soaked maybe from the morning or the evening before. And what this is absolutely delicious with is a portion of homemade hummus on top. Really lovely.
What's the liquid aminos? Is that just water?
No, liquid aminos is a fermented soy, but it's no salt, no added salt at all.
I know whenever this Chinese friend stays with me, that's what she does when we're cooking with the wok. She's always flicking water in.
Yes.
They don't use a lot of oil at all. It's like it's really quick and it's really lovely to watch. It's really artistic the way they do it.
Yes, the way they cut the veggies and everything.
Oh yeah, it is.
Yeah. So final thought. And
yes.
So it's also thinking about things like the water content of vegetables. So so something like cucumber, courgette, they're very water rich. They're quite cooling. Whereas something like a pepper or a chili will be quite heating. So thinking about how much water is in something as to whether it will be somewhat cooling or heating.
What are mushrooms then? Because I know.
Mushrooms. Now some of the mushrooms can be quite nice for reducing dampness, even though they're a fungus. So they can be quite nice for the spleen. I'm not sure if it's the chestnut or the button that are really best, but yeah.
Well, I just before we started, I just chopped up some spring greens, some mushrooms, chestnut, red onion, yellow pepper, carrot, and some courgette to do a stir fry. So that's got quite a few of those things in.
Lots of colour.
Yeah. It's trying to cook a rainbow every day, isn't it, really?
Yes. That's lovely. And that one is from the Why the Chinese Don't Count Calories book.
Oh, right.
Yeah. The green stir fry.
Yeah. So when you say serve it on a portion of buckwheat, buckwheat isn't wheat then?
No, buckwheat is actually a seed from the rhubarb family.
Oh, is it?
Yes, yeah. So millet and buckwheat and quinoa are all seeds rather than grains. Now, I have a feeling that this question might have come along before, and I've what is the difference between a grain and a seed?
No.
And it's quite tricky because the grains are still the fruit of the plant, but it's the class of plant that is different.
Right. I don't think I've got any buckwheat. I'll have to get some.
It's a nice grain. It's a nice seed. And again, if you just soak it and cook an ounce from dried. And it's something they use in Russia. They call it kasha. And in northern France, Brittany, they use a lot. They grind it into flour and they make buckwheat pancakes.
Big pancakes, of course they do. Yes.
Yeah.
Nice, aren't they? Yeah.
They're lovely.
Yeah. We
had them last week for our pancake day.
I forgot about that. That's been amazing. What I need to do now is when you send the recording, Susie, is go through it all again, because there's a lot of information there.
It is a lot, for which I apologise.
No, don't apologise. It's fascinating.
It's trying to
but
put
when
the 5 flavours in the context of where they come from.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
Sorry, Jane. I
only ever scratched at the surface. I didn't understand it like that. I still don't understand it. I'll have to listen again, but it was really interesting. It's really, really fascinating. So we really need to try and aim for the sour, sweet, pungent, salt and bitter, and a mixture every day, if we can.
Yes.
Or every meal if we can, but certainly every day. Yeah.
Thinking of it in a very different way. which you know, about feeding the body a form of energy every time you eat. And you don't want there to be an excess of anything or too little of anything, if you like. So yes, it's just an entirely different way of thinking about food.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Well, yeah, I'll look forward to getting the recording and putting some time aside to go through again with the presentation and actually making notes on that, because there's a lot there to digest, if you'll pardon the pun. But yeah, very good.
Are those recordings just there forever for us?
Yes, they are. Yeah.
Oh, right. So we can keep with going back to them. Great. Right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
That's great.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, Susie.
Oh, very good.
You're a constant surprise, full of surprises. Yeah, very good.
Oh, well, next week we are going to be talking about longevity.
Okay.
And going forward.
Okay. Yeah. Lovely. Okay.
Again, looking at the body in a slightly different way.
Yeah. Well. Oh, thanks ever so much. Lovely.
So I'll see you tomorrow, Susie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing you on Thursday and Friday. Thank you both.
Yeah, and I'll see you Friday. Yeah, lovely. Fantastic. Okay. Night for now. Yeah. Take care of yourself, Shell. Yeah.
Yeah, I will. Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, Susie.
Thank you both. Look after you.